The Open Window is a well-known short story by Hector Hugh Munro, better known by his pen name, Saki. Like many of his works, this story satirizes Edwardian society. Saki employs a story within a story, or embedded narrative, to delve into themes such as the absurdity of social etiquette, escapism, control, and the contrast between appearance and reality. Originally published in the Westminster Gazette on November 18, 1911, it was later included in his collection Beasts and Super Beasts, 1914. The narrative begins in medias res, featuring an unnamed 15-year-old girl who entertains the protagonist, Framton Nuttel, as they await his proper host, her aunt, Mrs. Sappleton. Nuttel, a nervous man visiting for a nerve cure, has letters of introduction from his sister to people in the area, including Mrs. Sappleton. As the girl questions him about his familiarity with the countryside, she discovers that his knowledge is outdated, being 4 years old. She then recounts a tragic event from 3 years prior that Nuttel could not possibly know about. According to the girl, her aunt keeps the large French window that opens to the lawn ajar, even in cold weather. She explains that 3 years ago, her aunt's husband and 2 brothers, along with the family's spaniel, left through that window to hunt snipe on the marsh. Tragically, they crossed a bog made treacherous by rain and were swallowed by it. With palpable emotion, she reveals that the bodies of the hunting party were never recovered. Her aunt, deeply affected by the loss, keeps the window open until dusk every day, convinced that one day the men will return and walk back through it. She tells Framton that her aunt often reminisces about the coat her husband carried over his arm when he left and the song her youngest brother sang to annoy her. As the niece wraps up her tale, she shares with Framton her unsettling feeling that the hunting party might return. Just then, Mrs. Sappleton enters, introducing herself and revealing her niece's name is Vera. She mentions the open window to Framton, explaining that she expects the hunting party to come back that way. Framton, already on edge, finds the conversation increasingly eerie, and in an effort to change the subject, mentions his doctor's advice to avoid any exercise or excitement that could exacerbate his nerves. Suddenly, Mrs. Sappleton exclaims that the hunting party is coming back. When Framton turns to Vera to exchange a sympathetic glance, he instead finds her staring in horror at the open window. Overcome by anxiety, Framton follows her gaze and sees 3 figures and a little dog approaching, exactly as Vera had described them leaving 3 years earlier. In a panic, he disregards social norms and bolts from the house before the presumed ghosts can enter. It soon becomes clear that Mr. Sappleton and his brothers-in-law are very much alive, and they wonder who just fled upon their arrival. Vera fills them in, explaining that the spaniel likely scared off their visitor. She recounts how he told her he was afraid of dogs because a pack once chased him into a cemetery and trapped him in a freshly dug grave overnight. The story concludes with a brief denouement. Romance at short notice was her specialty. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.